Hollywood has conditioned us for decades to believe that ancient battles were chaos. A disorganized melee, screams of rage, and endless, beautiful duels of heroes where every man fights for himself. This is a fundamental lie. Rome's secret was not individual prowess, but the absolute, terrifying suppression of individuality for the sake of collective rhythm and mathematically precise discipline. Roman battle tactics are not the art of a hero. They are the rigid, dry, mechanical engineering of death. It is an industrial conveyor belt for processing enemy manpower, where order was more important than bravery, and formation was more important than life. The most important element of this conveyor is not the sword, but order. A legion didn't just march into battle, it formed up into battle. The enemy saw not 5,000 soldiers, but a single, silent, and geometrically perfect organism that advanced slowly, inexorably, and terrifyingly, like a glacier. This march did not begin with the sound of trumpets, but with a sound that struck terror into barbarians more than any war cry. The rhythmic, heavy, resonating crunch of hundreds of iron-studded sandals. Caligay, stamping the dry earth or mud. This sound created a physical sensation of inevitability, as if the earth itself groaned under the weight of the empire. Visual. A macro shot of a heavy Roman sandal's iron hobnails, stamping the dusty earth with enviable regularity and monstrous force, kicking up tiny suspended particles in the golden dawn light that filters through the dense formation. The dull, rhythmic ASMR thud of Caligay, amplified by the echo of the empty plain. This was psychological warfare. The legionaries were silent, their faces hidden by helmets, and only this sound of footsteps spoke of their advance, and that they would not stop. The legion, aligned by the centurion's measuring rods, was devoid of emotion. It was a function. But the real mechanics of destruction began 30 meters from contact. The legion halted, and thousands of legionaries simultaneously, as if by a single signal, raised and hurled their heavy javelins, pilums. This was not just throwing spears. This was throwing a tactical sentence for the entire system of enemy defense. The pilum was a brilliant tactical tool, a long, thin iron tip on a massive wooden shaft. Why? To not just kill, but to disable the shield. The soft iron of the tip, having pierced the enemy's wooden shield, bent under the weight of the massive shaft. This ingenious design feature turned once reliable defense into a useless, heavy, awkward piece of wood that was impossible to extract in the heat of battle, and which hindered maneuvering. The whistle of thousands of pilums cutting the air is a piercing high-frequency sound that abruptly cut off with a heavy, wet, dull impact of metal against wood, making the entire enemy formation shudder. The enemy was forced to discard their shield, remaining completely exposed before the wall of Scuta, which crashed down upon them a second later, after emitting a single, short, terrifying cry. The enemy, stripped of shields and shocked by the steel storm of the pilums, found themselves before the wall of Scuta. This was not just a collision, it was the impact of a press. The legion used the scutum as a ram, breaking bones, knocking opponents down, and, most importantly, depriving the enemy of space to maneuver. Barbarians, accustomed to wide swings with long swords, found themselves trapped, pressed against each other, unable even to raise their weapons. And at this moment, after the first shock of the shield impact, when the enemy's formation disintegrated, the Gladius came into play. The sequential rasp of hundreds of short swords, gladiuses, being drawn from wooden scabbards, is the sound that meant the end for anyone in the legion's path. Rome did not fence. Rome killed. A legionary did not hack from the shoulder, exposing his side. The Gladius was created for lightning-fast, economical, and lethal stabbing into the abdomen, chest, or groin in conditions of brutal, tight congestion. It was less like a fight and more like industrial suffocation. Visual, a macro shot of a legionary's dirty, calloused hand tightly gripping the horizontal handle of the scutum, knuckles white with strain, while above, through a narrow gap between the shields, only dust and flashes of light are visible. The Gladius violently and efficiently thrusts forward into the darkness between the shields, accompanied only by a short, heavy, viscous chavkenye squelch of metal leaving soft flesh, and a quiet, almost unnoticeable sigh. A vast number of soldiers in the enemy's front rank simply disappeared into this darkness, crushed between Roman shields, and the only thing they managed to see was the lightning-fast gleam of the Gladius in the dynamic dawn light. But the most terrifying part of Roman mechanics is its continuity. It was an endless, suffocating death conveyor. If you want to continue diving into the hidden, brutal, and uncomfortable truth about history's greatest armies that movies will never show you, subscribe to the channel. We will tear off Hollywood's filters and show history as it truly was. While the first line of legionaries, exhausted from the slaughter and gasping from the smell of blood and sweat, slowly stepped back upon the centurion's command, the second rank, fresh and full of strength, surged forward through narrow, strictly calculated gaps in the formation. They replaced their tired comrades with the same machine precision, continuing to strike. For the enemy, this was a nightmare. Every time it seemed they were starting to push the Romans back, a new, fresh wall of killers rose before them, continuing the pressure. It was an endless, suffocating pressure that was impossible to stop. Barbarians might show rage once, but they could not withstand the avalanche rotation, which unleashed a fresh, unexhausted killer upon them every time. This was a war of attrition, where Roman discipline and logistics won against barbarian rage. Often the legion is presented as a single, monolithic, unwieldy slab. This is a lie. Rome's strength lay in its flexibility. Before the military reform of Gaius Marius, the legion was built on the manipular system, small tactical units of 120 men that resembled moving squares on a chessboard. Manipules were deployed in a checkered pattern, triplex aces. The first line, hastati, the second line, principes, and the third line, triarii, the most experienced veterans whose calmness in the third line was the last hope of the empire. This allowed the legion not just to outflank, but to dynamically react to any threat on the battlefield, encircle the enemy, break the line at a weak spot, or regroup when the first line retreated. Visual, a high-angle view at dawn, showing the perfectly level, geometric squares of manipules separated by narrow passages, moving slowly and synchronously across the field. The dull, rhythmic ASMR thud of Kalagi, amplified by the echo of the empty plain. Later, this system evolved into cohorts, larger, more powerful, and independent tactical units of 480 men that became the backbone of the professional army. A single cohort could fight autonomously, hold a key position, or execute deep maneuvers. Unlike barbarian hordes relying on rage and individual skill, the Roman cohort system relied on mechanics, discipline, and absolute obedience to orders. The creak of tightened leather straps of larica segmentata during a synchronized turn of an entire cohort is a sound that struck terror into any ancient commander. The legionary was not just a soldier. He was a part in this mechanism that knew its place and function. He knew that if he fell, his comrade from the rear rank would instantly take his place, and the moving square would continue its deadly advance. Cohorts could reform, close ranks, and open up, creating an iron wall wherever it was needed, depriving the enemy of any chance of a breakthrough. The Legion didn't just kill enemies in the field. It knew how to take cities using tactics of suffocation. The ideal embodiment of this was the tortoise, Tudo. But in film, this looks like an invulnerable, geometrically beautiful tank. In reality, the command to lock shields overhead meant stepping into a claustrophobic hell. The Tudo is not defense. It is psychological terror. Imagine you are in total darkness. Overhead, 10 kilograms of wood and iron. The shield cannot be rested on the helmet. The impact of a stone would break your neck. Only trembling hands from unimaginable tension. Around you, shoulder to shoulder, are another 80 men compressed tightly. Visual. A macro shot of a legionary's dirty hand, tightly gripping the horizontal handle of the scutum, knuckles white with strain, while above, through a gap between the shields, only dust and flashes of light are visible. The temperature inside is like a furnace, and the air is so thick with sweat, dust, and heavy breathing that every inhale burns the lungs. The terrifying, chaotic, deafening crackle pop of thousands of stones, arrows, and boiling pitch striking the shields is a sound that could drive you mad and completely drown out your own screams. But the most terrifying part is the absolute prohibition on humanity. If a comrade beside you falls from heat stroke, dehydration, or a crushed skull, the formation does not stop. You are obligated to step blindly over his body, instantly covering the hole in the roof with your own shield. Siege for Rome was a matter of time, not bravery. They built massive siege engines, catapults, and ballistas that rained stones and incendiary projectiles on the city, turning life inside into hell. Visual. A close-up on a Scorpion siege engine crew, constructed of precise Roman blocks and wood compatible with previous engineering visuals, meticulously adjusting the specific, unique, complex, dynamic winding mechanism, viewed in quiet afternoon light. A single cohort could fight autonomously, hold a key position, or execute deep maneuvers. The Tudo would slowly and methodically advance towards the walls under this covering fire. This was not an act of heroism, but a method of psychological breaking and physical crushing. The Tudo interior was a visceral experience of collective suffocating fear transformed by discipline into a powerful tool. And when the Legion finally broke through or encircled the enemy, the Gladius death conveyor began its work in total silence, broken only by dull, wet impacts and quiet sighs. Roman battle tactics were a complete system designed to crush the human spirit through order.